to do like 4 to 8 times. She was supposed to go down in one hit.
He's had power over my life for 4 years, and I've struggled for 4 years. He don't get that power today, so no, I don't have anything to say to him.
Michael Brady,
of 4 counts of first-degree murder and could face the death penalty. 4 prison workers died in the escape attempt in 2017.
a young man whose calmness in court was as unsettling as his crime, was sentenced to death for the ruthless murder of his best friend, Brandon Myers. The incident, motivated by greed and betrayal, occurred in 2012, leaving their community in shock. Known for his composed and detached demeanor, Brady devised the crime with precision, gaining Myers' trust before fatally stabbing him. The heartlessness of the act was starkly at odds with their past friendship.
State troopers said Brady shot him 5 times during a routine traffic.
Throughout the trial, Brady remained emotionless, showing no remorse. The courtroom was tense as prosecutors detailed the crime, emphasizing Brady's premeditation and cold demeanor. While his defense pointed to a troubled childhood and mental health issues, the jury was unpersuaded. Brady's lack of emotion and the calculated nature of the crime led to a harsh verdict.
I stabbed him like 4 to 8 times. She was supposed to go down in one hit.
When the death sentence was announced, the courtroom waited for a reaction from Brady, but he remained unflinching. His indifference was chilling, as if he had accepted his fate long before. For Myers' family, Brady's lack of humanity made their grief even harder to bear, as they had hoped for an apology or a moment of remorse to ease their pain. Following the trial, Brady's behavior in prison reflected his courtroom demeanor. He was described by guards as reclusive and detached, rarely engaging with others. While some believed his stoicism was a way of maintaining control, others thought it was a true reflection of his lack of connection to his actions. Donald Smith.
And he strangled the life out of him.
The nightmare began June 21st, 2013.
Donald Smith, whose name will forever be tied to a horrific crime, was sentenced to death for the abduction, rape, and murder of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle in 2013. This crime, committed in Jacksonville, Florida, remains one of the most disturbing and tragic cases in recent history. Smith, a repeat offender, lured Cherish and her mother with the promise of food and clothes. Hours later, Cherish was found dead in a creek, her life taken by Smith's monstrous impulses.
Rain Periwinkle is lashing out at the man who kidnapped and savagely raped and murdered her beautiful daughter.
The trial was emotionally intense, with jurors and witnesses visibly shaken by the harrowing details of Cherish's final moments. The prosecution presented Smith as a manipulative predator, carefully planning the crime, while the defense argued against the death penalty, citing his troubled background. However, the overwhelming evidence, surveillance footage, and DNA samples left no doubt about his guilt.
Have a seat. We'll be with you in a little bit.
Donald Smith is led into an interview room on the morning of his arrest as JSO detectives try to get answers.
What's your name?
Donald Smith.
Donald Smith?
Yes.
When the death sentence was read, Smith's response shocked many. His calm facade cracked, and he erupted in anger, shouting, "This isn't justice!" His outburst reverberated throughout the courtroom, drawing shocked reactions from those present. Cherish's family, seated in the gallery, broke down in tears, their grief compounded by Smith's refusal to express any remorse. The scene turned chaotic as Smith continued to rant, forcing security to intervene.
Never-before-seen video of the moments in June 2013 when police captured child killer
Donald Smith.
Driver, step out of the vehicle. Face away from us. Keep your hands in the air. Stop.
Children, sexual objects. I don't view them as sexual objects or sexual partners. All I know is that I snapped.
In prison, Smith's behavior mirrored his courtroom defiance. Guards reported frequent outbursts and non-compliance with prison rules. Smith became a symbol of unrepentant evil, a man who not only destroyed lives but seemed to take pleasure in the suffering he caused. For Cherish's family, his reaction to the death sentence served as a painful reminder of his cruelty. Although the sentence brought some sense of justice, Smith's continued lack of remorse kept their wounds fresh. Austin Myers. Austin Myers, at just 19 years old, received the death penalty for his role in the brutal killing of 18-year-old Justin Back in Waynesville, Ohio, in 2014. The crime shocked the local community for its savagery and senselessness, driven by nothing more than financial greed. Myers, along with accomplice Timothy Mosley, planned to rob Justin, a former friend, of a safe they believed contained money. What began as a robbery escalated into murder when the two strangled and stabbed Justin before abandoning his body in a rural area.
His trial took weeks. His verdict was handed down in hours.
We, the jury, find Austin Gregory Myers guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of aggravated murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment.
The trial painted a grim picture of Myers as the mastermind behind the crime. While Mosley, who accepted a plea deal for a life sentence, admitted to the stabbing, it was clear that Myers had orchestrated the entire event. Prosecutors emphasized his arrogance and lack of remorse, presenting him as manipulative. Myers' behavior in court supported this view, as he appeared detached, even smug, suggesting he thought he could outwit the justice system.
Back's mother, Sandy Cates, shed tears during the final moments of the trial.
When the death sentence was read, Myers' earlier confidence crumbled. His face lost color, and his hands shook as he gripped the table, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. The courtroom fell silent, broken only by the soft sobs of Justin's family. For the first time, the arrogance that had defined his demeanor evaporated, revealing the vulnerability beneath. Nico Jenkins. Nico Jenkins' reaction to his death sentence was as disturbing as the string of murders that led to his conviction in 2013. Just weeks after being released from prison, Jenkins went on a killing spree in Omaha, Nebraska, taking the lives of 4 innocent people. He later claimed that a serpent god, Apophis, compelled him to commit these murders as human sacrifices. Jenkins' bizarre and violent actions, combined with his erratic behavior, made him one of the most notorious criminals in Nebraska's history.
Convicted killer Nico Jenkins back in an Omaha courtroom, telling the judge why he thinks he doesn't need legal help anymore.
During his trial, Jenkins frequently interrupted proceedings with rambling outbursts about his supposed divine mission. He also engaged in self-mutilation, carving symbols into his face as part of his rituals for honoring his God. His behavior left the jury and courtroom spectators unnerved, blurring the line between insanity and deliberate defiance. When the death sentence was handed down, Jenkins' response was unsettling. He smiled, a slow, deliberate grin, as if mocking the very court that sentenced him. Then he laughed softly, as though the ultimate punishment was a trivial matter.
He's had power over my life for 4 years. And I've struggled for 4 years. He don't get that power today. So no, I don't have anything to say to him.
For the victims' families, Jenkins' reaction was an emotional blow. They had hoped for at least an acknowledgement of the pain he had caused, but instead, they were met with what felt like a cruel mockery. The judge, disturbed by Jenkins' indifference, labeled him a danger to society and the embodiment of evil. However, these words had no impact on Jenkins, who appeared entirely disconnected from the gravity of the moment. Markeith Lloyd. The courtroom scene during Markeith Lloyd's death sentence was chaotic, reflecting his violent and unruly behavior throughout the trial. Lloyd was convicted for the murders of his pregnant ex-girlfriend, Sadie Dixon, and Orlando police officer Deborah Clayton. His trial was marked by outbursts, insults, and confrontations with attorneys, judges, and even family members.
Moments ago, we're following this breaking news out of the courtroom for Markeith Lloyd. He has now been sentenced to death for the murder of Orlando Police Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. The judge walked in several moments ago and she handed down that sentence. Again, Markeith Lloyd will get death for the murder of Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. Lloyd was accused of causing more trouble in jail over the last couple of days. The Orange County Jail confirms that he was involved in several incidents. But again, the breaking news this morning is that he will be getting death. And we can tell you that not only was former Lieutenant Clayton's family in the courtroom this morning, along with Orange County Sheriff John Mina and Orlando Police Chief Erlone, along with Sade Dixon's family. He murdered her several years before Deborah Clayton. They were also in the courtroom this morning.
The murders were committed in a frenzy of rage. In December 2016, Lloyd shot Sade Dixon multiple times after a violent argument, killing her and her unborn child. Weeks later, as law enforcement closed in on him, Lloyd shot and killed Officer Deborah Clayton in a Walmart parking lot, making him one of Florida's most wanted fugitives. After a massive manhunt, he was captured, though he often referenced the physical abuse he allegedly endured at the hands of officers during his trial.
Most wanted man in Florida is waking up in a hospital this morning. Police captured Markeith Lloyd Tuesday night in Orlando. The chief says he resisted arrest and he's now being treated for minor injuries before they haul him off to jail. ABC Action News anchor Lindsay Logue has been following developments from Orlando. She joins us live now with details on the arrest and also what is next in this case. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, sir. Can you please tell me your name?
My name is Markeith Lloyd.
Officers, can you pull the mic a little bit closer?
As the death sentence was announced, Lloyd exploded in fury. He slammed his fists onto the table and shouted curses and accusations of injustice. Security quickly restrained him, but his loud protests drowned out the judge's words. The families of his victims sat in stunned silence, the intensity of his outburst overshadowing their grief. For them, his rage was a stark reminder of the violence he had brought into their lives. A man unwilling to take responsibility, even when faced with overwhelming evidence. Rachel Chaw, Sheila Eddy. The 2012 murder of Skylar Neese shocked the nation with its horrifying details and betrayal. Skylar, aged 16, was lured by her best friends, Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf, under the pretense of a casual night out. However, unbeknownst to Skylar, the two had plotted her murder. Armed with knives, they drove her to a remote location just across the Pennsylvania border, where they claimed to smoke marijuana. When Skylar turned her back, they counted to 3 and launched a vicious attack, stabbing her over 50 times. When their attempt to bury her body failed due to the hard ground, they left her covered with branches and rocks, where her remains lay undiscovered for 6 months. Initially, both Sheila and Rachel feigned innocence. Sheila even took part in the search for Skylar and posted tearful messages online about missing her best friend. However, in late 2012, Rachel broke down and confessed to the murder, revealing that the reason for killing Skylar was simply because they didn't like her. Her confession led investigators to Skylar's remains, and Sheila was implicated when Skylar's DNA was found in her car.
In my mind, there's no words to describe the horrific act that the inmate committed against Skylar. No matter what she says now, that she was young and she didn't know better, I'm sorry. 5 and 10-year-olds know not to commit murder.
The exact motives remain debated. Rachel later explained in a 2023 parole hearing that she and Sheila were in a secret romantic relationship and feared Skylar might expose them. However, this explanation doesn't fully explain the brutal nature of the crime. In 2014, Rachel pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a 30-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Sheila pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison, with parole eligibility after 15 years. Both remain incarcerated in West Virginia, their shocking betrayal serving as a chilling reminder of how dark teenage dynamics can turn. Joseph Zieler.
What's that?
All right. I ain't doing nothing yet. Relax. I'm calm.
Are you okay? I'm fine.
I am relaxed. Don't cough. Relax.
I used to box. I've taken a lot better shots than that.
Yeah, what is this? Relax. Let me hurt you. I ain't doing nothing yet.
Joseph Zieler, a convicted child killer, became infamous not only for his heinous crimes but also for his disturbing behavior in the courtroom as he faced his death sentence. Zieler was found guilty of the 1990 murders of 11-year-old Robin Cornell and her babysitter, Lisa Story, in Cape Coral, Florida. The case went cold for decades until DNA evidence in 2016 linked him to the brutal murders. The victims had been sexually assaulted and suffocated, leaving lasting impact on their families and the community. During the trial, Zieler showed a troubling combination of defiance and cruelty. He mocked the proceedings and exhibited no remorse for his actions. Prosecutors painted him as a man who cared nothing for human life and was driven by a sense of entitlement. Despite his defense team attempting to argue mitigating factors, the overwhelming DNA evidence led to his conviction. The jury unanimously recommended the death penalty, a fitting punishment for the severity of his crimes.
It's going to be overturned the minute that I get post-conviction DNA testing. I'm confident of that because I know where I've been. I ain't been there.
When the death sentence was read, Zieler shocked everyone in the courtroom. He requested to approach the victims' families, seemingly to apologize. However, instead of expressing remorse, he attacked one of the mothers. The courtroom erupted into chaos, with law enforcement quickly intervening and escorting him out. The mother later stated that Zieler's violent act was a final, grotesque display of his evil nature. For many present, it was a shocking and repulsive example of his cruelty.